Sony has been hosting its State of Play presentations for a few years now, giving PlayStation fans fresh looks at upcoming games. A PlayStation State of Play event is always cause for excitement in the PlayStation community, as they often include brand new game reveals, updates on upcoming titles, and sometimes even give fans a sneak peek at upcoming PlayStation Plus free games. PlayStation fans can now mark their calendars for the next State of Play, as Sony has confirmed that it's taking place on Wednesday, October 27th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. It will be broadcast on both YouTube and Twitch, and will focus on third-party PS4 and PS5 game reveals. What this means is that fans shouldn't expect to see games like God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West at the show, but it should still have plenty of exciting announcements nevertheless. Besides confirming that the next State of Play will focus on third-party games, Sony also revealed that the event will be about 20 minutes long. What's interesting about the State of Play date is that it takes place on the last Wednesday of the month. Sony typically announces next month's free PS Plus games on the last Wednesday of every month, and so it stands to reason that the November 2021 free games announcement could happen on October 27th. This State of Play announcement came after the God of War PC port announcement, as PlayStation always does this type of things. It's like a clockwork. Santa Monica Studio is overseeing, or otherwise supervising, the PC version's development, something directly handled by Jetpack Interactive. For those who are curious, this Vancouver-based developer specializes and focuses on developing ports. In the past, it has handled Port or Orcs Must Die, Unchained, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2, NBA Live 14, NBA Live 15, and more. Internally, the studio does list a game prototype Project X currently under development, but what exactly that is remains to be seen. Recently Sony revealed the Uncharted Movie trailer, which looked okay, but the casting and dialogues look off. The premise of the movie is good, combining iconic events from the games into the prequel. This movie is an adaptation from a video game universe, so staying true to the originals is important. Fans who have played the Uncharted games, most of the people including me, will watch the movie to see what they have done with it. Overall, this movie have to do justice to Uncharted, and I hope it is not bad. Okay, now returning to the topic of the conversation, as I am going to make my predictions for the State of Play. First, let's see the so-called rumors. We have been waiting to get another substantial look at the upcoming Hogwarts Legacy game for some time now, and if a recent rumor is to be believed, the wait could soon be over. In fact, it's possible that we will finally get another look at Hogwarts Legacy as early as next week, thanks to the new PlayStation State of Play event, which will be focused on third-party games in development for PS4 and PS5 consoles. At the beginning of October, a reputable leaker responded to someone asking when they might get to see Hogwarts Legacy again. At the time, the leaker said that they would get to see the game either this month or at the Game Awards. Since Sony announced its next State of Play event, the leaker has offered a follow-up to her original tweet, saying it could be revealed here. This is clearly a hint that Hogwarts Legacy could very well be featured at the State of Play event, though nothing has been confirmed, and so fans should take this information with a big grain of salt for now. Hogwarts Legacy isn't the only big third-party game rumored for next week's State of Play event. Rumor has it that Final Fantasy XVI will be at the State of Play as well. Final Fantasy XVI is in a similar spot as Hogwarts Legacy in that they were both two of the earliest games revealed for PS5, yet neither one have had a substantial update since their initial reveals. If both games are featured at the next State of Play, the event will be a hit for sure. On Tuesday, October 19th, ResetEra user Angie shared a discovery they'd made in the forum's Final Fantasy XVI community. An official Final Fantasy XVI webpage within PlayStation's broader directory of game profiles had been freshly published. At the time, the page was broken, though even when it went live there was no notable new information on it. However, as Final Fantasy XVI fans, they couldn't help but speculate about an upcoming reveal due to the page's surprise publication. With that in mind, Angie appears to have toured other game profiles on PlayStation's official website, checking to see if other games received a new profile too. They found that it wasn't just Final Fantasy XVI's webpage that had been added. Other games added to PlayStation's directory included Gotham Knights, The Lord of the Rings Gollum, musical open-world game Tkaya, and Dark Pictures, which presumably means the Dark Pictures Anthology Collection. Lastly, Voice of Cards apparently already had a profile, but it was updated at the same time as the other games. The Final Fantasy XVI fans ultimately dismissed the new game profiles on PlayStation's website as happenstance. This was Tuesday, after all, and Sony had yet to announce a new state of play. Needless to say, Friday's state of play confirmation could present those website changes in a new light. They could be evidence of PlayStation preparing for certain reveals to come as part of next Wednesday's state of play. Just looking at the list of games, there's nothing outside the realm of possibility. Rather, most of these games make a lot of sense for Sony to showcase at a PlayStation state of play. Partners would include Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, Daedalic, Square Enix, Bandai Namco, and then the indie teams behind Little Devil Inside and Tkaya. That's the same Tkaya that Sony featured during the PlayStation Showcase 2021. These are familiar partners for PlayStation events. Sony's decision to make the next State of Play event focus on third-party games was met with a somewhat mixed reaction from the community, as fans are anxious to see games like God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West again. However, a heavy hitter like Hogwarts Legacy and Final Fantasy XVI would ensure that the next State of Play is still plenty exciting for any PlayStation gamers that tune in. It would make more sense to show big blockbuster games on a bigger showcase, like at the PlayStation Experience, but showing those here does not need to be concerned with, but are welcome. Others possible announcements are the Spider-Man DLC for Avengers, Resident Evil Village DLC as we have discussed the possibility, and Capcom's tease in our previous video. So check it out there in detail. Others may be Call of Duty Vanguard PlayStation exclusive content reveal, and maybe Ghostwire Tokyo. Overall, I will be covering this state of play, and I can't wait to see what gets revealed. Moving forward, Rockstar Games has finally announced the release date for the upcoming Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition, but with a bit of a twist depending on the versions of the games players want to buy. In one case, this does confirm that Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy will be available in December. Some players will be able to pick up the game almost a month earlier depending on how they purchase the game. In the case of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the two different versions of the game that will alter the release date are the digital and physical versions that players can purchase across all major platforms. This means that players who prefer to purchase digital versions across consoles and PC will be able to download and play the game much earlier than those who prefer to own a physical disc of games. For the digital edition of the game, players will be able to buy Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy on November 11th, with pre-orders for this version already available to purchase at the time of this writing. The physical edition, however, won't be available until December 7th, according to the official listing on the Rockstar Games online store. It isn't clear if this delay is a result of shipping time, or simply the time needed for the developer to prepare the discs for mass market distribution. Both the digital and physical versions of the game will be available for $59.99, still a standard price for most titles releasing across previous and next-gen systems. Additionally, this release information has also revealed the system requirements, which are relatively low even among remasters and should give access to players on most consoles and lower-end PC builds. There is also a slight difference with the release date on some consoles, which shows Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy on PS5 releasing a day early on November 10th, though other systems like the Nintendo Switch show the 11th like Rockstar Store. Players excited to either revisit these older games, or possibly give this classic trilogy a try for the first time, digital appears to be the better option between the two. Of course, there are millions of players around the world who don't have consistent access to the internet for the download, possibly either increasing the expense to purchase GTA The Trilogy or delaying the availability of the game to these fans. When Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy The Definitive Edition launches, Xbox Game Pass subscribers will get instant access to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Anyone that wants to access the other two games in the bundle will have to shell out the $59.99 to get their hands on Grand Theft Auto 3 and GTA Vice City as well. On December 7th, PlayStation Now subscribers will be able to play the GTA Trilogy version of Grand Theft Auto 3 for no additional charge. Grand Theft Auto Trilogy uses GTA 5 style controls, which should help the games feel much more modern than they would have otherwise, with Rockstar promising wide-ranging modern control options. GTA Trilogy has made some improvements to the basic gameplay in all 3 games, with revamped targeting and lock-on systems, updated weapon and radio station wheels, updated mini-maps with new features, and more. Those on Nintendo Switch can look forward to some unique features for Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the definitive edition, not available in other versions of the game. For example, the Nintendo Switch version of GTA Trilogy will have gyro aiming support and touch-screen control options. Meanwhile, those playing on PC can look forward to NVIDIA DLSS support and some updated features through the Rockstar Games Social Club. The most obvious improvements coming in Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the definitive edition, are visual. The trailer shows how Rockstar Games is improving the graphics for these classic PS2-era GTA titles, implementing a new lighting system, new shadows, improving weather effects, upgrading the character models, improving the textures, and generally making sure that GTA Trilogy looks somewhat improved when compared to the original versions of the games. According to the Nintendo eShop, it seems as though the Grand Theft Auto remasters will need just over 25 GB of storage on the hybrid console. This is significantly more than the PC port of the GTA titles, which require 45 GB of hard drive space. The Xbox version will require even more, 49 GB in total, according to official sources. The definitive edition of the trilogy will be altered and some changes will be made. I have to compare the original version to the latest, to find out what are all the things that have been removed, changed and altered and added. The GTA Trilogy does look in the PS2 aesthetic with enhanced visuals, which is a good and a bad thing. The good thing is that it brings the old school GTA vibes, but the bad thing is I would prefer a remake instead. The remaster is cool, and after this Rockstar should consider remaking them from the ground up. These are legendary games, so I'm definitely gonna cop it, but compared to Mafia Definitive Edition, this does not stand tall. A remake could have been better. Fans have been waiting to hear any new information about the upcoming Fable game ever since it was announced last year, and, for a moment, it seemed like news would be coming sometime based on some tweets from the official Xbox Game Studios publishing Twitter account. Unfortunately, however, Xbox clarified and said that no new Fable news was coming. Yesterday's initial tweets, which have now since been deleted, said that the company was excited to kick off something special today, but that it needed some time to prepare the chickens. While chickens have been something of an in-joke throughout the entire Fable series, this alone wasn't enough to convince fans that Xbox was preparing a Fable announcement, but the second tweet in the deleted thread made things much clearer by name-dropping the upcoming game. It said that the something special from the first tweet would be called Fable Anniversary, but that the name was already taken. The Xbox Game Studios publishing Twitter account quickly backtracked on the matter by deleting the original tweets and apologizing for the confusion. It added that the company doesn't currently have anything to show today about the untitled Fable sequel or any other Xbox exclusive titles. The incident has made fans wonder, however, if something might be in the works. Xbox simply trolled their fans. There's been essentially no word from Xbox or from Playground Games about Fable, so fans have been hoping for quite some time that new information would be coming soon. As most of the major games industry events of 2021 have passed without any significant update, fans were surprised by the random Sunday afternoon announcement only to be disappointed once more when it turned out to be nothing. Some are hoping that Fable makes an appearance at the 2021 Game Awards, but there hasn't been anything to suggest its inclusion other than the fact that there hasn't been any update on the project for over a year. Even if it wasn't any information on the unreleased Fable game, fans were thinking that the tweets from Xbox were potentially referring to a remastered collection or otherwise released versions of the older games in the franchise. Despite getting some graphical and performance updates on the Xbox Series X and S, there hasn't been an official remastered version of any of the original Fable trilogy. A release like that could have done well to help tide fans over as they wait for the next title. However, if anything like that is in the works, it hasn't been publicly announced. Speaking of new games, Final Fantasy XIV producer Naoki Yoshida has reportedly been in positive talks with Microsoft to bring the massively popular MMORPG to Xbox. Final Fantasy XIV has blossomed into one of the most popular MMORPGs in the world since its relaunch in 2013. With the title's highly anticipated Endwalker expansion launching in November and more players flocking to the Square Enix MMO every day, FF14 boasts over 26 million players spanning several different platforms. With the PlayStation 5 receiving its own version of the massively popular MMORPG earlier this year, players on Xbox still have yet to receive their own version of Final Fantasy XIV. While Final Fantasy XIV has seen steady growth since the release of A Realm Reborn, the popular MMORPG has seen a particular boom during 2021. Endwalker's upcoming release has enticed further fans to dive into the world of Eorzea, and Square Enix is reportedly in positive discussions with Microsoft to bring the massive RPG to Xbox consoles. During a recent interview, Final Fantasy XIV producer Naoki Yoshida spoke on the status of Final Fantasy XIV's arrival to the Xbox line. While Yoshida was not able to provide many of the finer details of the discussions with Microsoft, he did report that the discussions were going in a positive tone. Yoshida was not able to provide a release date for an Xbox version of Final Fantasy XIV, but he was hopeful that he would be able to provide a proper update for fans relatively soon. Final Fantasy XIV's massive growth during recent months has led to plenty of issues for the title. The player base among the game's many servers and data centers has bloated significantly as more players join the game with congestion, even leading to Final Fantasy XIV's cross-server play being temporarily delayed. Data centers have frequently been closed to new players as Final Fantasy XIV servers have struggled to deal with the game's ballooning player count. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker is scheduled to release in November of this year and promises loads of new content coming to the popular MMORPG. Alongside newly revealed racial options like the male Viera and female Hrothgar, the game's pre-existing jobs will receive several updates with new Dark Knight and Paladin skills alongside minor addition for many others. Many fans are excited for the story of the upcoming expansion, with Endwalker acting as the conclusion to the Zodiark and Hydaelyn storyline. The end of 2021 is shaping up to be an exciting time for Final Fantasy XIV fans. Final Fantasy VII Remake was first revealed as a PlayStation exclusive game, but it was always known that it would only be a timed exclusive. Final Fantasy VII Remake's PlayStation timed exclusivity is believed to be at least 6 months since launch, with that likely having started over since Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade hit PS5. Since Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade released on June 10, it stands to reason that the game could make its way to other platforms starting in December. Nothing official has been announced, and so far, Final Fantasy VII Remake is still only confirmed for PlayStation consoles. However, Xbox China recently sent out a tweet that, while not an exact translation, was basically a poll asking fans to pick from a variety of Xbox characters. The poll focused on women from various games available on Xbox, and oddly included Tifa Lockhart in the lineup despite Final Fantasy VII Remake only being available for PlayStation so far. Xbox China deleted the poll and released a new one without Tifa as an option. It's possible that the poll was meant to be a reference to the original Final Fantasy VII game, which is playable on Xbox, and that the tweet was deleted to avoid confusion. However, it's also possible that the tweet has essentially leaked the existence of a Final Fantasy VII Remake Xbox port. While it hasn't been officially announced, the release of an FF7 Remake Xbox port is likely just a matter of time. Multiple leaks have pointed to the existence of a Final Fantasy VII Remake PC port, and if Square Enix is willing and able to bring the game to PC, one has to imagine that an Xbox release wouldn't be far behind. This is Xbox's 20th anniversary, and to celebrate, Microsoft is hosting a celebratory stream later this year. In a new Xbox Wire post, Microsoft has announced a special 20th anniversary broadcast fans can tune into on November 15 at 10 a.m. 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. The stream will be a historical look over both the last 20 years of Xbox and Halo, with Combat Evolved releasing alongside the original Xbox console in 2001. Fans should not expect any new game announcements or reveals during this broadcast, with head of Xbox Game Studios Matt Booty saying as such. Xbox clearly disrespected Halo by releasing the game incomplete and half-assed. The multiplayer beta of Halo was a decent one, but to return Halo to the glory, Xbox needs to reinvent the wheel. Speaking of Xbox, Microsoft reveals that the projected growth in Xbox Game Pass subscriber numbers didn't meet the company's expectations this year. Although the official number announced by Microsoft in January is more than 18 million, we do not know if that was concurrent subscribers or people subscribed from the beginning. Despite numbers that might seem impressive to a layman, Xbox Game Pass hasn't performed as well as Microsoft expected during the fiscal year that ended on June 30, 2021. According to a financial document prepared for a November shareholders meeting, Microsoft had a growth target of 47.79% for Xbox Game Pass in 2021, but instead the subscriber count grew by only 37.48%. In 2020, the subscription service surpassed expectations, growing by 85.75% as opposed to the projected 71%. It should be noted that the target subscription numbers for 2021 were set before the delay of Halo Infinite in August 2020. In addition to the launch of Halo Infinite being postponed to December, there haven't been many big-ticket Xbox exclusive titles released in 2021. Age of Empires 4 will be launching on Xbox Game Pass for PC on October 28. Forza Horizon 5 is scheduled for a November release, and Remedy's first-person shooter Crossfire X is still expected sometime this year. Besides that, the decline in Xbox Game Pass subscription growth might be partly attributable to people returning to regular work after a year spent mostly in lockdown, which also affected PS Plus subscriber growth. So, we have to factor that one too. For owners of either a PlayStation or Xbox console, the corresponding subscription services may prove appealing. Sean Layden has stated that services need to be at least at a 220 million subscribers, so that then only they can be able to sustain big blockbuster games going day and date to the service. Until then, I don't think Xbox will produce high-budget AAA games. They will do it in seasons and breakables like Halo, or they will do snackables like Forza Horizon 5. And if Game Pass is not growing at a certain rate, then we should be really worried about the quality of the games that will be coming out. With the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 having been released for almost a year now, fans have been debating about the two companies behind the juggernaut consoles. One area that is discussed often is the offerings that Xbox and PlayStation have when it comes to exclusive games. Comparisons between the two have been made often, with many fans stating that offerings from Xbox have been underwhelming when compared to PlayStation. Microsoft has heard this complaint, however, it has yet to be shown in the green side. In a recent interview, head of Xbox Game Studios Matt Booty has shared that he feels as though Xbox has been behind Sony when it comes to large tentpole games, which is the truth. Booty continues a bit by saying that Xbox is not done growing. Unfortunately, many of the games announced for Xbox do not have release windows, such as the highly anticipated The Elder Scrolls 6, Perfect Dark, Hellblade 2, and the next entry in the Fable series, so fans could be waiting a while for Xbox to catch up to PlayStation in terms of top-notch exclusives, but with the day-and-date service model I doubt that. After all, Xbox has some good developers, and if they release quality high-budget games down the line, then they could be a competition for PlayStation in the near future. Moving forward, 343 Industries releases new campaign-focused trailer for Halo Infinite revealing new story details, sandbox design, and upgrade mechanics. Fans have seen a lot of Halo Infinite's multiplayer over the past few months, but it has been a while since the game's campaign was shown. A new trailer by 343 Industries provides a thorough new look into Halo Infinite's campaign, and just what lies ahead for players becoming the Master Chief once again. Halo may have been the catalyst for competitive FPS multiplayer on console in the 2000s, but at the forefront of every game has been the story. Whether it's the legendary Halo 3 tagline, "Finish the fight," or the infamous Hunt the Truth slogan for Halo 5 Guardians, the single-player element of these games is just as important as the multiplayer. As for Halo Infinite's campaign, it was the first revealed during the summer of 2020 and received heavy backlash from fans, ultimately contributing to the game's delay to 2021. Since then, fans have had the chance to go hands-on with the game's multiplayer, which in turn has made the desire for more campaign information even greater. 343 Industries has dropped a campaign overview for Halo Infinite, the first major update about the experience since 2020. The 6-minute video is narrated by Jen Taylor, the voice actress for Cortana, and is stuffed with new information about the single-player mode, including more teases of the game's story, the structure of the game's levels, and other mechanics that may be exclusive to the campaign. Regarding the narrative, the game taking place after the events of Halo 5 Guardians, and 6 months after the UNSC's defeat at Zeta Halo, with Master Chief searching for Cortana with the help of a new AI, simply known as the Weapon. In the trailer, Taylor describes Halo Infinite's campaign as the most wide-open and adventure-filled Halo experience yet. Players will get to freely explore Zeta Halo, capture banished outposts, free UNSC prisoners to join the fight, and call in vehicles at a moment's notice to make traversal a breeze. For the first time ever, players will be able to upgrade equipment like the grapple shot and the drop wall through the use of Spartan cores in a special skill tree, allowing ownership of combat approach like never before. Lastly, combat has been further enhanced, featuring boss battles with health and shield bars, new enemies like the skimmers, and clashes with a sadistic elite referred to as a Spartan killer. I am intrigued for the story, but the campaign footage is not that good. They improved some characters' models like the pilot, but the world and the animation looks janky. Sound design is not good, as when grappling or punching enemies, it doesn't feel right. Multiplayer is free to play, but the looks of the campaign is not good for a flagship franchise like Halo. Hope the story turns out well, so the franchise can long last. Delays in the gaming industry are nothing new. However, when the community is waiting on new tech, it can feel like an eternity. SCUF Gaming, a company that makes performance controllers, recently revealed that its modified controller for the PS5 will finally be released after being pushed back this summer. For the PS5, Sony dropped the DualShock in favor of the Dualsense, which is a revolutionary high-tech controller. On Twitter, SCUF gave a status update on its awaited PlayStation 5 controller. Initially, the PS5 SCUF Pro model of the Dualsense was to be released sometime during the summer. Now, SCUF announced that it's happening. In its message to fans and supporters, SCUF explained that the company was hit with supply chain hurdles that have affected the gaming and tech market throughout the pandemic. Although SCUF did not give a specific date on when players can get their hands on the new PS5 controller, they have at least given fans a new target for the controller's release. Fans could see it as early as mid-November. While there isn't too much known about the PS5 SCUF controller, some of the details from the released image in the tweet look familiar to PS5 fans. SCUF appears to be preserving the overall design of Sony's DualSense, which is to be expected. Key aspects for console competitive gaming such as back paddles can also be seen in the picture. Back paddles are typically utilized in games like Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Apex Legends, and can be seen on the rear side of the controller. Back paddles also open up better customization and button remapping options for players in and out of a competitive setting. Recently, SCUF released the SCUF Instinct Pro controller for Xbox Series X and S, launching with pro features such as back paddles, trigger tension options, and on-controller mute options. We can say that similar functions could have been added to the new PS5 controller. This looks like is an official partnership with Sony, unlike the D-brand faceplates. They faced a legal action on that after teasing Sony to sue them, but made a brand new one after that and again teasing Sony. So, it is a good thing for gamers to receive this controller for competitive shooters and other games, and in terms of faceplates, I need Sony to partner with some companies for making faceplates for games like Horizon and God of War. They didn't do that for Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank, and I am disappointed with that. Recently, PlayStation partnered with Sony product design and marketing for movies and games. So, I hope they do these custom faceplates and releasing them prior to the game release. And that's all for the video, guys. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon, and until then, from SMPV, it's goodbye.